All right, good evening, folks. Good to see everyone tonight. We're going to pretty much hit the ground running here tonight. We have a fun, packed evening scheduled. So thank you for coming out. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jake Byler. I have been hosting this meeting for a good number of years now, and just really value getting into a room like this, creating this opportunity, and being part of a group like this. So a couple things. You guys know we have sponsors that pay for the cost of the room and all of our expenses. And our 2025 sponsors are Ben Yoesh, he's a friend of mine, a local realtor. Jeff Moeller does some private lending. He's in the room here with us. Joe Liofsky's here as well, Compass Property Management. Amos Stoltzfus from Mill Run Storage. Sam Glick from Red Box Dumpsters. And Chet Lapp from Providence Abstracting Company. They are the guys that pay our expenses for the year, so we appreciate them. I don't know what you guys think about when you come here, or like if I would go around asking each of you like why you came, I'd probably get a variety of different answers, and there's multiple different correct answers to that question, potentially. But I always look at it as kind of three different categories, and it would be education, inspiration, and connection. Generally, when we go to these events, the one that we probably think about the most is education, right? We want to go learn something. We want to go learn how to invest. We want to learn how to grow a business, and that's true. But in my opinion, the education or the inspiration and the connection part of that may be a bigger thing. The inspiration is like you just never know what you'll learn when you get around a group of people. If you were here last month, you heard me talk about very briefly of an experience I had a week before in this very room where the Light of Hope Prison Ministry had their banquet, and I got to hear from a man that was an inmate for 50 years, and he just got out this past February. So to me, that fits the inspiration category. On a personal note for myself, I just got back. I was in the country of Turkey about a week and a half ago, and one of the things that really impacted me there was getting around. So there was me and a couple of friends went over basically to support a long-term team, a long-term missionary team. Turkey is it's a Muslim nation. It's a very spiritually dark place, and I was just really impacted realizing that our core conversations with the people that we went to support were, so I would say the core conversations were largely around reaching the lost and raising up disciples and seeing the Great Commission fulfilled. And that impacted me because looking at life through that lens, a lot of the things that we see as problems or challenges on a daily basis either fade away because they're not as big of a problem, or they actually cease to exist because some of this menial stuff that we get excited about simply can't exist in the light of a greater vision like that. So that was a recent thing for me that was just it really stretched my thinking, and it was fun. So obviously we're talking about business here, we're talking about real estate, talking about fireplaces and the whole story behind fireplaces tonight, but just examples of having our thinking stretched and being inspired, right? So one of the things we love to do as part of kind of the start of the meeting is have someone share a quick snapshot of the current real estate market, and that can, of course, be a very broad range of things. But my friend Chris Good is going to come. Chris, you can come on up. And he's going to share with us just real briefly on a couple of things here. I'm going to pull your slides up, Chris, but you can go ahead.
Thank you, Jake. Good evening, folks. All right, so if I just pulled a quick, pulled the numbers for Lancaster County, single-family residential homes in June of last year and comparing those numbers to June of this year. Units listed were up 15%, but the monthly supply of inventory actually went down. That's based on buyer demand. So the monthly supply of inventory actually went down about 7.5%. The average days of market's about the same. Average sales price is up about 12%. That doesn't necessarily mean the market appreciated that much. It could be maybe some more expensive homes sold since then, but some of that's appreciation. So yeah, that thought that was interesting, and just a quick couple fun things that I found while I was doing a little studying for this is I learned that McDonald's owns about 40 to 42 billion dollars worth of real estate worldwide, and 30 to 40% of its revenue actually comes from the rent it collects from the franchisees. So these are the people that own the restaurants. Am I blocking the screen there? Another thing that I found interesting was in 1950, you could buy the average U.S. home for about 210 ounces of gold. And today, an average home would cost you about 124 ounces of gold. One thing you want to take into account there is in 1950, the gold price was fixed at $35 an ounce. And then in the 1970s, I think they took that cap off, and it's been kind of letting the market do its thing. And then Jake had asked me to share something inspiring. And one thing that came to mind is I had a conversation, I've had several of these with some younger investors, but I had a conversation just a couple of days ago with somebody that owns a couple properties, and he is feeling stuck. He wants to grow his portfolio faster, but money's a little bit tight, and he was asking, like, what are some things I can do to speed up the process? And there are ways to expedite it, but it got me thinking back to when I first started, and my experience and what I learned from folks that are more successful and more experienced than myself is it often takes 5-7 years till you really start seeing a significant change in your financial or situation, your lifestyle, whatever. That's in real estate. I'm assuming it's probably the same in business. We'll learn a little bit more about that this evening. So my advice to him was, he's already got started, and he's kind of in a phase where maybe kind of an awkward spot. Give it a few years, he'll have some equity grow in his current portfolio, rents increase, so that increases your cash flow, and he'll be able to leverage that to grow. And the longer you're in it, the more exciting, at least in my experience, the more exciting and the more fun it becomes, because you start gaining momentum, things get easier. So if you find yourself in that situation, I would just maybe encourage you, don't compare yourself to somebody that's been in it for a while. It's easy to do that. I still find myself doing that. Play the hand you're dealt. We all start at different places, right? Some just have more access to resources than others. And never stop learning, never stop hustling, and good things will happen.
Thank you, Chris. That was a good piece of advice right there. Okay, it's always fun to know about other upcoming events that we might like to go to. So Joe Liofsky and Eli King, they both have something that they want to share with us. You guys can come on up and tell us about the exciting events coming up in the area.
Hey, just to continue on what Chris was saying, that 5 to 7 years, that's not necessarily just you buying real estate and the real estate appreciating. That's you learning and thinking and growing, because there's a learning curve that comes with it. Sometimes people will compress that learning curve reading books and getting around people, groups like this, and you can compress that learning curve some. But there's a learning process that's going to happen, and sometimes it just takes longer than others. So anyway, on July 24th, Russ, Nebraska has a meetup that he has up at Mount Joy. It's on 50s Chickie, Eby's Chickies Road, right, up in Mount Joy. So Wojo from Life and Air is going to be there talking about Life and Air as a group, as a mastermind. And everybody knows what a millionaire is. A millionaire is somebody with a lot of money. A life and air is somebody with a lot of life. Jake touched on that earlier. It's not just about the money or the business. It's kind of what you do with it. So that's on July 24th up at Russ, Nebraska's group up in Mount Joy. And then the only other thing I'd like to talk about is there's some seminars coming up. People talking about how to build wealth. I would just encourage you to very cautiously, proceed, check out the person that is putting on these seminars, check out the syndicator that's looking for that, that big check that you're willing to invest in. Before you invest with somebody, before you take someone else's advice, look at the fruit on the tree, ask about some prior deals. Ask about some deals in Florida. I'd love to give you some names, but ask about some deals in Florida. Florida real estate's hot. And there's people that are investing in Florida that aren't making any money. There's a lot of people in this room. So before you invest in money, before you take advice from somebody, ask a lot of questions. That's it for me.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Glad to see you here tonight. The event I have to share is an event put on by Horizon Quest. Horizon Quest is in Ephrata. They have a couple different offices, but the local one here is in Ephrata. And they are a business training group connected to me by Chris Good. And they asked me to come speak on July 14th. So I'm going to be speaking about the art of finding the deal. So I was inspired on this topic by hearing a lot of beginning investors who want to get started. They're like, I'd love to buy, some real estate, but how do I find the deals? There just don't seem to be a whole lot of deals in there. So I thought of some unique ways that we have bought properties, some methods that we are engaging in on a continuous basis, how to find off-market deals. So I decided to put this presentation together with that in mind, with beginning investors who are looking for different and unique ways to find off-market deals. Just to the goal here for tonight, or for that meeting, is to just stretch people's way of thinking on where deals are to be found, and just to help people get started with their real estate investing journey. So again, this is put on by Horizon Quest. The date is July 14th, Monday, July 14th at 6 to 9 p.m. The registration fee is $75, and the address is in Ephrata, and we have a bunch of flyers. There's some on the back table, as well as I have a few here that I'll be putting out at some tables. The other thing I would like to mention is you get a bonus. Chris Good will be spending the first approximately 45 minutes of the presentation just sharing about breaking down a deal, what does a deal look like, and then he'll also cover the MLS portion of how to find deals, like when you're looking with a realtor, how to be more effective as you go out, hit the street, and looking for deals. So I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Eli. I would say Eli is definitely very qualified to talk on that topic. I think he could probably buy real estate in his sleep, and I'm actually suspicious that he does, because I have no idea how he gets all the stuff done that he does. So go out and listen to Eli. One more fun thing before we dive into the main topic of the evening. Our friend Dave Kaufman, which spoke here a couple of years ago, is here tonight as a guest. He reached out to me today and he said, hey, I'd like to come to the meeting. What time is it? So I asked him if he wants to share a little bit. So Dave, come on up. Dave's going to give us a 5-minute power talk. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm giving him the mic. So welcome, Dave.
What a dangerous thing to do is to give a speaker a mic. But good evening. So those of you that don't know who I am, I've dedicated my life to serving business owners and helping them become more effective as leaders and salespeople. And I do that by helping them understand personality types and how to communicate at a higher level. But he said 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to tell a story of how I almost died in an airplane. This is back when I was 20 years old. I was learning how to fly. And my instructor set up the flight for the next morning on a Friday evening. And so I was sitting there getting ready for the flight Friday evening, and I go to bed, and I wake up Saturday morning, and I realize it is raining cats and dogs. In the South, that's a storm that you don't want to go flying into. So I rolled back over, went back to sleep. My phone rings, and my instructor, Gary, he was a redneck from Alabama, he says, hey, David, get your butt out of bed. We're going to go flying today. And I said, huh? He says, yeah, we're going to go flying, and I'm going to save your life. I got out of bed. And I'm driving, and I go to the airport, and he says, go pre-flight the plane, and it was pouring down raining. I mean, rain was going sideways. This is not something that you want to do in a little Cessna 152. And so we pre-flight, and we get in the airplane, and we take off, and he says, all right, Dave, he says, fly runway heading and climb to 5,000 feet. Well, that's pretty simple. So, I mean, I'm talking... It was rough. We were bebopping around, and it was rough, and we keep climbing. We finally get up to about 2,000 feet, and there's the cloud level, and he says, keep going through and level off at 5,000 feet. So I'm fighting this thing, and it's bad. This is not a good idea. And so we get up to 5,000 feet, and we level off, and he says, just keep it on this heading and keep it level. And then he goes into silent mode. He literally folds his arms and is just sitting there. And I'm like glued to my instruments because you can't see a thing. I mean, it is pure white soup. And it's like just going by you. And I looked out, and I could barely make out the wingtips. That's how bad it was. And we were going around, and he was quiet. And I got locked in, and I started like zoning out. And I'm locked at my instruments, and I'm just like kind of froze. And after a while, I feel like we're turning to the left, so I correct to the right. And Gary's over there in silent mode. And we keep going along, and I feel again like we're just drifting to the left, so I correct to the right. And again, and again, and again, and again, until I was upside down and going down. Yeah. And all the while I was sitting there like froze and just had no idea that I was upside down. He's over there in silent mode. And all of a sudden he looks over at me and says, David, are you ready to die? Now, I'm a Christian. I thought he was asking a question about, like, what must I do to be saved? And I said, by the grace of God, I am. I'm ready to. He said, well, I'm not, and we're about to. And I said, what do you mean? He says, look at your instruments. And I instantly realized, like, I came out of that. Because when you hear the zone of the engine of the airplane and the rushing of the clouds beside you, you get disoriented. You get what you call spatial disorientation. And I had it. And he said, well, we're about to. And he said, my airplane. I said, yes, it is. It's yours. Because I realized then that we were upside down. And so he pulled it out. And afterwards, when we landed, he comes to me. He says, see, I told you I was going to save your life. And I learned a very valuable lesson that day. That you can't, in business and in also flying airplanes, you can't trust your feelings. You have to know your numbers. In a business, you should have a dashboard. You should have a cockpit with all the instruments of your business that tells you how's sales doing, how are employee morale doing, how is the production doing. You should have a dashboard that tells you exactly how your business is doing. And if you don't have that, the only thing left to do is to go on your feelings, and your feelings might be wrong, and you might end up crashing. So I'm going to close like I always close on a major speech. I say I speak to thousands of people all across the country, and I can honestly say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you guys have been by far the most recent. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dave. I knew he'd come up with something good. Alrighty, who wants to learn about fireplaces, about Breeo Fire Pits? Or maybe more importantly, who wants to know why we all know about these fire pits and the story behind them? So I think this is going to be good. The screen here tells us a good bit. The kind of the tagline of this presentation is start up to 50 million in 7 years. And I think they have 60-something employees. I mean, you guys know in Lancaster County, it's not that hard to start a business, have a couple employees. I mean, you got to do some things right, but it's not that hard to start a business in Lancaster County and do okay. But there's not very many that grow that large, especially that fast. And so anytime that happens, it might be worth asking, why? How did that happen? What's behind it? can we get this guy in the room and tell us a bit about the business? So that was the idea of this. I mean, Amos would be the first to tell us he doesn't have it all figured out, but he is going to share with us some things that they learned along the way, and how he was able to take this startup company and scale it into a very large business today. If you saw the bio that I included in our email this morning, part of the bio, Amos says he's passionate about sharing the lessons learned from his journey, hoping to empower others to build on his insights. So that's why we're here. Amos, come on up. Looking forward to seeing what you have to share. So let's give a big hand for Amos. It's all yours.
Can you get me this? Okay, well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. I would be lying if I say I'm not nervous, but I think of a story when Dave was up here talking. I think it was in 2018, 2019. I got this this postcard in the mail, and it was from Horizon Quest, I think it was, and it said something about a leadership class at Shady Maple, and I'm like, well, what can I lose, right? What can I lose? So anyway, we ended up signing up. We had 4 people go to that event, and it was a life-changing event. It was to this day, it was the best event. It was Dave and Luke, and the theme of that that leadership was lead like Jesus. That was, yeah. So anyway, thanks, Dave. That's still an inspiration. I still talk about that. And that's been a game changer in the way I look at life and look at people. So anyway, so you said we're going to learn more about fire pits. I don't think you're going to hear much about fire pits today. That'll be another session about how to build fire pits. But I am here to. It kind of feels like I'm exposing myself today. This is really the first event that I'm like, it's like I'm exposing myself, and I'm good, right? I'm okay with that. My goal is that I don't come across boastful or in any that way. This is more about the gift that God gave us, right? So to me, it's a blessing, and I can say there's a lot of things that was fun during this 11-year journey, and there's also a lot of things I'm shameful of, right? So hopefully we can all take something home tonight. So yeah, first of all, I just want to thank. Got many people to thank. I think it's really thank you, Jesus, for what he gave us, right? That to me is, without that we could not, like, nothing's by accident. So the blessings that we have it's all thank you, Jesus, right? Another thing is my wife and my family are excellent supporters and have been great in our journey as well. Our team, the team around me at work, the Breeo team has been incredible. We're more than just co-workers. We're a team. We're a family. So I just want to thank them for their support. So when I was sitting here, I'm thinking I was kind of nervous, and I had flashbacks. 11 years ago, I'm about to walk into a meeting. Right, once a week we had a meeting, the family meeting, right? Because I'm working for my dad in the family business, and we're working on transitioning to second generation, right? So Dad's ready to transition second generation. So there's 4 boys. There's four of us, a brother-in-law. So there's 6. There's 6 in the meeting. So I'm walking into the meeting with one thing in mind, right? And I'm about to tell my family that I'm not going to be part of the second generation business, right? So when I up here to speak, I could feel that the same kind of nervousness, right? So I walk into the meeting, sit down, and right, it's like all I don't remember anything other than I had given my dad I give my dad a heads up that this is coming. But anyway, sat in the meeting and let my dad and my brothers know that I'm not going to be joining the second generation business, that I'm going to be leaving the company. Right? So they're like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Right? And right away, it's just like the guards are going up, right? It's like, this is like a shock. And you got to keep in mind, I'm the oldest of 4 boys. There's 8 in the family. I got 4 sisters, and then I'm the oldest boy, and then there was 3 brothers, right? So I was a leader for, I was a leader, and I was my dad's right-hand person for, worked in the company since I was 10, right? I remember picking up my first welder at 10 years old. So this was my life, right? This is what I'm going to do. So, okay, well, what's your plan? I said, I don't know, right? I don't know what my plan is. I just know that the Lord is telling me he's closing the doors, right? He's closing the door. It was clear to me that he was closing the doors, right? Do you guys ever feel that? The doors close, right? Well, keep in mind, I fought this for a year. This was not a new thing. I fought this for a year. And finally, I'm like, can't take this. This is it, right? Because if you think about it, it's like, this is my life. This is my identity. And I worked so hard to get it to here, help get it to here, right? I mean, we had tremendous growth at DS at that point. So I walk out of the meeting, and I get this voice. The Spirit is saying, go talk to Ruben at Superior Plastics. I'm like, what is this? I don't even know Ruben. Here he said, go talk to Ruben at Superior Plastics. It's so clear, I can just remember it. So I had to call a person to get Ruben's number. Called Ruben, he's like, oh yeah, come on over, right? So run over to Ruben, met with him, and I kind of laid out what's happening. Is like, hey, I just got, and he had went through a similar, not similar what I had, but he went through a second, like he actually bought the second generation business from his dad, but he was second generation, and I was just looking for advice. So I let him know what my goal is, of like, hey, I didn't tell him. I said, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. It's like, what I do know is I'm not going to be here. I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to work for somebody else? Am I going to start another business? What am I going to do? I had no idea. He's like, well, all I can tell you is go home and fast and pray about it. Well, I'd never done that before either, right? I'm like, what is this all about? Okay, well, sounds good. I went home. This is on a Tuesday. Go home, go back to the shop and say, hey, Dad, I'm taking the rest of the week off. That's all I told him, right? So I get home, and my wife is in the inside, and I said, hey, I just told her, because she knew this was happening, and I said, hey, I got advice. I'm gonna fast and pray about this. So I put my phone in the drawer and everything disconnected. There's this like woodlot back behind our house. So I went back there, took a chair back there, and that was day one. So no answer, right? Day two. So day two, it's in the evening, and I go up to the house, and I pick up my, and it's like, and I go to the bathroom there, and I get my phone. My phone's dead. So I put it on the charger, and turn it on, and I checked my voicemail, and the voicemail said, "Hey, give me a call." Right? Give me a call. So I, all right, gave him a call. The phone rang. He answered, and I hung up. Okay, hung up. All right, well, that wasn't cool. So I called him again, pretending like we got disconnected. Right? And I started talking to him. And he's like, "Hey, what are you up to? Like, couldn't get a hold of you, right?" This is actually a customer that I was working with. I was working on a project with this customer, and all of a sudden, I just started talking to this person. Like, why this person? But anyway, just started talking to this person, and I just laid everything out. Hey, this is what happened. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, am I going to buy part of the business? Because that was a little bit of discussion in that meeting, right? My brothers are like, "No way, you're not going to buy part of the business," right? And my dad's like, "Well, maybe." So that was now the third option. It's like work for somebody else, start my own business, or buy part of the business, right? And I kind of laid it out. It's like, these are the three options that we have. And he's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, it'd be great to, like, the safest way would be buy part of the business, right? I don't really see myself working for somebody else." But it's like, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to start, like, it seems like such a big step to start my own business. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because I don't want to compete against my only thing I know how to do is weld. Right? I don't know how to do anything else. So he's like, "Well, go start your own business. You don't want to buy that company. You don't want to buy part of their company. You're going to be tied to them. Get out," he said. And it's like, that was my message. It was like, that was a clear, like, message from God saying, go start your own company, right? And at that point, I knew it was the right thing. And yeah, if I get emotional, it's still fresh. But it's like, I remember my wife was out in the garden, and I walk up through, and she could see that there was a change, right? So from that day on, I was willing to lose everything I had to start, because I knew it was God's sent message, right? So my fears went away for a day, right? For one day. I was like living top of the world, right? So yeah, it's just unbelievable, the having that experience, and that was like, even from that day on to this day, there's many moments that I know God had his hands in decisions and things, right? Just as simple as, like, I'll give you one example of a person. I hired a CFO in 2022, right? In 2022, I hired a CFO, and 3 months in, he resigned, right? And I was like, what was that all about? But there was something good beyond that, right? That person was meant to be there that through those 3 months. I still believe that, right? So anyway, so again, one of the things that having thoughts, right? One of the things I mentioned in that meeting, mentioned to my dad, is like, you know what? Like, this is so hard, even afterwards, like, this is so hard. I'm losing everything I've done, right? It's like, keep in mind, help grow. I was the vice president of the company at that point, and I was like, here I worked all these years, and I'm getting nothing, right? I'm basically walking away, I'm getting nothing, right? So basically the feeling of losing what I work for. Anybody ever feel that? Feeling like I've lost everything I work for? Is that true? Most times it's not. It's usually up to us. Because what I realized very soon, like I'm talking about, it probably took me a couple years to really understand this, but I'm like, man, I'm thankful for everything I've learned up to that point. Everything I've learned, right? So what I'm telling you is you're going to have those thoughts, but it's about getting back up. It's about getting back up and actually like looking at the positive stuff, right? Look at the positive things. Another one is like, I feel pretty important, right? I feel like an important guy, right? It's like, I've got us here, right? It didn't take me long to figure out that I wasn't important at all. They done better without me, right? They done better without me. Like seriously, like when I left, they actually the company went up. Right? It's like because there was space there, right? There was more space. So I went from feeling important to lonely, right? And I remember, so it just happened that when after I announced it, there was my dad owned the building that we're in now. And there just happened to be a tenant that moved out, so I had an opportunity to move in that building. So it was everything, just the timing was perfect. And keep in mind, I'm starting my own business. But what am I going to do? I didn't even know what I'm going to do, right? It's like, well, I guess I'll start doing metal fabrication work. That'll get me by, right? It's like, but yeah, what am I going to do? Okay, let's do metal fabrication. And at that point, we were working on a cook stove, a kitchen range at DS. DS makes stoves. Working on a kitchen range, a wood-fired kitchen range, and Dad said, "Hey, I'll let you can have that. I'll let you take that design, and it's a little bit of a different market. I'll let you take that, right? We're not going to do that. We'll let you take that on." I wasn't prepared. I wasn't preparing myself to start a business. I didn't have any money. Everything was invested, right? I had bought a house, right? I had bought. I had $10,000 in my banking account. Well, what I'm going to do? $10,000 don't go very far in metal fabrication, right? Equipment. Maybe if you're a carpenter, right? That would have worked. But for me to get started, metal fabrication, I had to spend $100,000 on metal fabrication equipment, and that was like one machine cost $100,000. I went to like the Paradise sale and I bought like a $300 saw that new was like $12,000. I started from the bottom, right? My dad was great. He loaned me some money. My dad loaned me $100,000 to start, and yeah, that's where we got started. I didn't even know who's going to work for me, right? It's like the first I gave him, it was about a 3-month transition period where after the day that we met to when I started. So this was in June of 2014, and September 8th of 2014 is when it was actually my first day. I walk in and it's dirty. First day, all I did was pressure washer the building out, right? I didn't even have employees. I didn't know. First thing I was like, well, I guess I got to get equipment so I can work. So I bought equipment in, and then I bought equipment, and then I started knocking on the doors, right? And I'll talk about that in a bit. So what were my goals? My goals at that point was like, if I can have 4 or 5 employees, I can do $1 million in sales, that would be awesome. I could do that the rest of my life, right? That was my business goal, like $1 million in sales, I figured out, I had a little bit of a plan of like financial planning. If I have 4 or 5 employees, that's my sweet spot. And I can just, all day we can do that, right? So anyway, talking about feeling lonely, walking in. So I was used to having family around me in my whole time. Like my dad, he was my shepherd, right, in business. So I'm like alone. And you talk about loneliness, right? I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I do this, right? And I'm like, well, you got to keep going because the message was still clear. But it's just second guessing yourself. I remember sitting in my office crying of just loneliness of like, man, why did I do this, right? Because I didn't have that support. Yes, I could call them up, but they were not in the office, right? Well, let me give you another thing. Talking about feelings and stuff, right? How important I felt. You ever have the feeling of like, I kind of wish that person wouldn't be successful, right? So left the companies like, I kind of wish they would kind of go downhill so that they miss me, right? Well, that was wrong. That was wrong. There was some conflict, obviously. You can imagine three brothers, and yeah, there's conflict. And 2 years after I started my business, one day I'm like, I still had these feelings, right, about my one brother. So I call him up and I say, hello? Okay. I call him up and I'm like, hey, I'd like to come over and talk. So went over and talked, and I said, Steve, I said, I got to make some things right here. I know you and I didn't really have spats. We had some spats with some feelings, and you could just feel the tension there. It's just like when you have the feelings. And I said, I apologize for wishing you, how would you call it, doomsday, whatever you want to call it. I said, I apologize for wishing sometimes bad things about your company, right? I said, I don't want that. I want our relationship to be great. And from that day forward, that was a lesson. First of all, I also felt like he wronged me, okay? And it's like, well, he owes me an apology. And I'm like, no, this is not right. I owe him an apology. So I apologized to him. We reconciled our relationship, and to this day, it's awesome, right? We can now talk to each, like we're brothers. We're real brothers, right? Like brothers should be. So that's one of the things I like to take with me, because I experienced that feeling of reconciliation. Even if somebody wrongs you, oftentimes it's probably you. And it's not even just words said, it's thoughts, right? If you have thoughts about somebody, you want to feel better if you apologize to that person. You don't have to just say it, you can actually feel it. It's an amazing experience. All right, so who are we, right? So who are we? Breeo, we are an American-made smokeless fire pit manufacturer, e-commerce, and omni-channel business. Most people ask, like, well, what does Breeo stand for? Well, I didn't have anything to do with the Breeo name. I bought Breeo, but after I'm in business for a few years. But Breeo is definition is vigor and I get this twisted up. Vivacity of style and performance. So who am I, right? Or who are we? Our core values at Breeo are being flexible, focused on growth, fearless feedback, and fun. And our purpose, right? What are we there to do, right? Why are we in business? It's innovation, best in industry, right person, right seat, shared success, and community and mission outreach. And I like the bottom one. Opportunities are like a freight train. You guys ever hear that? Opportunity like a freight train. Picture Picture a 100-car freight train. This also applies to real estate as well. Opportunity like a freight train. Every car is an opportunity. Right? So what do most people do? They grab the first one, and they grab the next one, and they grab the next one. Whoa! Then they can't. Then they're full. They can't get more. Right? They can't get more. Opportunity like a freight train. Let a few go by, so you can actually see what's going on, and then pick the good ones. Pick the good ones. Right? So often, what happened is people grab every opportunity, and then they miss the good ones because they can't do the good ones. Right? That was a good friend of mine gave me that advice. My attorney friend at that time just said, Amos, think about that. And I think about it a lot. Okay? So how we got started. Another thing that's kind of interesting, it's not on this slide, but I would ask different people, like, how can I be successful right out of the gate? Because so often it's like people struggle through a startup, right? And it's like, surround yourself with good people, whether it's banking. Thanks, Brian. Accountant, attorney, business mentors, marketing agency. It's like surround yourself with good people and you will be successful, right? Good people that fit you. Talking about when we open the doors, marketing the business, how I hit the road to generate business, right? What do most people think when they start a business? I got to build a website, right? Why is that the first thing that people think about? I got to build a website, right? Well, website ain't going to get business. It's traffic that gets it's traffic that gets business. A lot of people think build a website and you get business. No, it's not the way it works. Okay, so I spent the first year, I spent like 0.5% on advertising, and I think that was like I think I advertised in the what's the Dave Coe book? Lancaster County Business Director. Yeah, that's what I did. Put my name in there that people know me, right? But what I did was as a startup, I just started knocking on doors and said, hey, here's my card, here's what I'm doing. And that's how I started up. Just talking to people, right? My brother-in-law, King Swings at that time, he gave me some work. And that's how I got started doing custom fabrication. So the cook stove business, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna hit the ground running. The cook stove was still in development, and I'm like, 2 months, I'm gonna have that thing going. I've got nothing else to do. I'm gonna get that cook stove going, and we're gonna start selling to dealers because I got all the connections. Everything's gonna work out. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out that that's not gonna pay my bills for a while. So that's when I was doing custom fabrication, and I didn't get that cook stove on the market for 2 years. It took 2 years to get that cook stove in the market, and I made a commitment. Talk about getting things. I made a commitment that I'm gonna every day. I'm gonna do something on that cook stove. I'm never gonna go home from work until I work something on that, whether it's a little bit of design work, because my background is engineering. So I was an engineer at DS. And so I did that on the side. So I had a full-time job running a business and then a side job developing the cook stove. This is a part that I'm ashamed of, is like, if I look back, I thought I had to work a lot to make a business go. Yes, it definitely the business, like the business grew faster because I worked, but like I was working for 1 year. My wife and I sat down and talked about it. She's like, I'll give you 1 year and you can work as many hours as you want. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'll be home by 7. That was my life for a year. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do that. I regret doing that. If anybody ever gets to start a business, I know it takes more work, and you think, you think you need to do it, but it's just, I look at it and say I lost a year, with my kids, because it's like get home, eat supper, go to bed, and start over again tomorrow. So anyway, got the cook stove business going. 2 years in, and interesting thing. So again, I didn't know what my future was going to be. So we started the business in September. October, Breeo knocks on my door and says, "Hey, we need somebody to make fire pits." And at that point, DS is making fire pits for Breeo. Because Breeo is a marketing, like they're a sales marketing company. They don't manufacture, right? So they need a contractor to do their work. And I'm like, well, I said, no, I can't make fire pits because I don't want to take the work away from DS. And they said, you got to. And I said, okay. So I talked to my dad and I said, hey, I got an opportunity to make fire pit. He's like, hey, I'm not going to hold you back from it. So anyway, they gave me, that was the Zentro, is actually the insert model that we make now, still make. He's like, the owner's like, hey, if you can make it for this, you can get the job. So I'm like, okay. Gave him the price. And I remember I didn't hardly sleep that night because I knew I'm going to lose money making that fire pit. But I wanted the business, right? But what I learned from that is if you're forced to do something sometimes, you actually do it. It didn't take, the first batch or two that we didn't make any money, but we figured out how to do it. We got creative, and it ended up working out, right? So that's where the Breeo story starts. Is again, it was another one of those open doors. 1 month later, Breeo, and the interesting thing about my partner now, Jonathan Miller, he was with Breeo. I had met him in Salt Lake City in March that spring, and we made a connection, right? And they won the Best of Show award, and I was there celebrating with him. So that connection stayed. So talk about building relationships. That stayed. And then when he heard that I started my own company, he came knocking and said, "This guy is looking for work. I want to work with this guy," right? And as an engineer, they were looking for a engineer manufacturer, right? And I look back now and I'm like, you know what engineers are worth? Right? Engineers, what are they worth? And I was like, I'm not like, engineers are like, oh, well, you're gonna give me a royalty, and it's like, no, I was just easy to do business with. I said, come on, let's do it. We designed fire pits. We were having a good time. I was enjoying myself. And that turned into working for them for 2 years. And then Andy Kaufman from Ohio said, hey, I want to get out of this. I want to sell the company. Are you interested? And I said, I don't know if I can afford this. Well, what do you want for it, right? So we hardly even negotiated. He's like, well, if you pay me this, we're good to go. I'm like, back and forth a little bit. And, okay, we're good, right? So 3 months later, Jonathan and I actually during the transition. So the way it works is Jonathan's a partner, and Andy wants out. So we sat down and we said, okay, what are our goals? Because keep in mind, I'm going away from second generation business and I'm never going to be a partner again, right? That was going through my mind. I'm never going to be a partner again, right? That didn't work. But what I realized was I was wrong. I was wrong again. It's like partners are okay, right? Partners actually could get you places. And it's like if you look at the 0 to 50, that's what a partnership did. I would have, like, again, I shouldn't say never, because without, like, God is good and he, nothing's impossible. But I look at it and say, it wasn't about me. It was the both of us that really took us there, right? The reason it worked so well is we complement each other. He's sales and marketing. I'm operations and finance, right? So it's a perfect fit to take us, right? So it's like we laid down our plan, and I'm like, I want to be in this long term, right? I want to be here long term. One of the reasons I went in business is to work with my boys in the future. And he's like, I want to go in business because I don't want a job, right? And I'm like, okay, no problem, right? But he wants freedom, right? And I'm an operator, so I want to go to work, right? So we're all different. I remember a startup. It's hard to find people to work. It's hard to find people to work for me because, who wants to take a chance on working for a startup, right? It looked risky. I couldn't really pay that well. My benefits, it's just like I'm a startup, so it's like I couldn't, my first employee was a 14-year-old working 2 days a week. And then I had this guy knock on the door that was 18 that's like, yeah, I'll come and help work for you, right? And then he was at a wedding and he was talking to another 18-year-old beside him and, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. So I'm telling you, you talk about stress and shutting, you talk about so I'm a fabricator for many years. I'm training these people to weld. And the amount of grinding wheels that we had to go through that first year was unbelievable. Okay? It's like they'd weld, you grind it off and start over again, right? It was just thankfully I had my head in the sand because I just had to zip it and just be a coach. It was very, we started from the ground up, okay? Finally, we got an experienced welder, right? So now we have 4 people. And I knew that we need to have 4 people in order to make payments because you can't just make a $100,000 loan. You got to pay for your rent. You got expenses to pay for. So I figured out 4 people is what I need to make this business run. So I had to create work for this. So one day, my brother-in-law, he's like, him and I are back and forth, and Elmer from King Swings, he's like, I'm complaining to him, said, man, I just can't hire anybody. Life would be easy if I could hire people. And I'm expecting to get some pity, right? And he looks at me and says, you're doing a bad job at marketing for hiring. I'm like, okay. So I changed my mindset on that and broke through the ceiling and figured out how to hire people, right? And I agree. I did a bad job. I created my own ceiling thinking, well, nobody really wants to work for me. He's like, people aren't going to work for you. They don't know you're hiring, right? So anyway, broke through the ceiling. And that's a lesson I learned, again, is we're limited by ourselves. So we had a team of 4 people. And my first challenge came. It's like, well, I need a manager that runs the shop because I'm working on sales. I'm wearing all these hats. I'm doing engineering. I need to get a manager. So employee number 3, I look at this and say, okay, well, who's going to be the person? Because in the Amish community, it's always the person that worked there the longest, right? Is your manager. And I looked at it and said, wait a minute, no, that's not going to work. I picked out the person that was qualified, was a people person, right? And I assigned him as manager and that was the first disruption. You can imagine my employee number 2 didn't like that. Employee number 3 didn't like that, right? But we got through it. I tried to coach them through it, and we did end up losing one of the employees because of that, right? Because they were let down, that they were kind of offended that they were not chosen for that. Well, that employee is still with me today. He's my number. He's been there from the beginning, and he's doing a great job. He's my production manager. Another thing I learned is how keeping score equals profitability. So keeping score, I think one of you mentioned about keeping score. That was one of the things I learned, is keeping score is super important. Dave talked about the dashboards, right? We did that from day one. And that's why we've been profitable every year, right? And you talk about, remember I said earlier about like, man, I lost all this, right? Like, that's one thing I kept. My dad, he was a good mentor. I forgot to mention him earlier. He's a good mentor. He's opposite from me. He's the best guy to work for in the county. Not the most organized guy, but he's the best guy to work for. He has an employee there that's been 42 years there. Before I was born, he's still there, right? So my dad's a good person to work for. Always has been. I always enjoy working with him. But one of his things that he always said is, I would at that point I'd be quoting jobs for him, in the fabrication, and I'd be like, man, the customer came back and they said that we need to cut it, like we need to get to this price. And he'd say, it's a lot funner fishing, losing money than working. Right? But his point was, don't give your work away. And if you look at it, it's like my dad, he was very successful in his time. Like when you look back, it was like, at that time, he was one of the most successful businesses in the area in his time. And the reason for that is he understood the value that he created. He did not undercut his value, right? And I see that with so many people, even in construction. They don't charge what they're worth, right? They don't charge what they're worth. If you're twice as fast as the other guy, charge twice as much, right? So I'm saying, like, do you understand your value that you have? He did. He understood his value. He passed that on. And that's why we've been profitable every year, right? Not every year was great, but we can still say, and I also look at it as a blessing. So a few things, if you look at establishing a foundation, why we need great mentors, and then there's also an expiration. Just a few things that we experienced I experienced in the past is, like, again, make sure that you have a good banker, good accountants, good attorneys. And I'll give you a little story of a lesson I learned about an accountant. So we were working with an accountant, and we ended up and we were growing leaps and bounds. And in our mind, we were thinking, well, this person's not going to be big enough for us, or this accountant is not going to be big enough of a firm for us to handle our account. So let's switch, right? And that's a mistake that we made, is like, why switch if it's working? It was working fine, right? It was working fine. It was just I was thinking ahead too far, right? And we ended up going back to that accountant after working 2 years we ended up going back there, and it's working great again, right? So what I'm saying is, when it comes to relationships and working with people, if it's working, keep using it, right? Keep doing it. One of the things that most of you guys might know where our shop is, we have a little shop there on Route 30, and one of the things I'm looking at is saying, I want to do $10 million in revenue in that shop. That's my goal. And I'm trying to figure out, well, how am I going to do this? So I got connected. There was a company in Ohio called Pioneer Equipment. They were doing lean manufacturing at that point, and they introduced me to lean manufacturing, and I connected with a consultant. And today, we're doing about $40 million out of that shop, only because of lean manufacturing. Only. If we would have done that, that would have not worked. Okay. And I know lean manufacturing is kind of a curse word for many people, because they think, well, inventory. How can you not stock? Is it inventory? It's like, no, lean. It's lean thinking, right? It's lean thinking, not no inventory. So that's been a game changer for us. So thankful that we've been part of. We've had that opportunity. Another one is we have an EOS implementer. We have our operating system that we use is EOS, is an entrepreneur operating system. We've actually, our lean consultant introduced us to that. And keep in mind, I'm in business, and after I left the family business, I'm sick of meetings. You can imagine, right? Like you sit there, you talk, and you don't get anything done. Sick of it, right? So we're not having any meetings in this company, right? So my lean consultant tried to say, you need meetings. I'm like, nope, not doing it. He's like, all right, do me a favor. Tomorrow at so-and-so time, I'm going to come by, and I'm going to take you for a car ride, an hour car ride, and I want you to listen to this section of it's called the book Traction. I want you to listen to this book, this one chapter, and then if you come back and you don't agree with it, fine, and I'll let it. So he knew how to get me, right? And ended up getting back, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And we've been doing it ever since. So that I don't even know what year that was. I want to say 2018 or so. No, anyway, it doesn't matter. We've been doing it ever since. That's been a life changer for us too, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I had some CEO coaches, and they've been very helpful in the past. Fractional CFO, so financial advice, right? This is my accountant. This is a financial. The fractional CFO is actually, if you look at our business at Breeo, we are there's not very many that have the same type of business. Keep in mind, we're a manufacturer, American-made manufacturer, selling e-commerce products across North America and omni-channel. How many are those around? There's one that I know of. Okay? And I'm connected with that CEO. So there's not many around. There's not very many e-commerce CEOs, CFOs on the market either. So when I went to hire a CFO, I couldn't find anybody that understood the language. So that's why I hired a fractional person. This person only worked for direct to the consumer companies. Right? So I found myself a who because of this, right? Again, another thing that we've just done just lately is Culture Index. We use it for our hiring process. I didn't know you'll be here, Dave. I probably would have kept this out. Yeah. But anyway, I have nothing against this. I've learned greatly from it. We still use it, right? This is just a different level. They both work. But anyway, that's what we're using. Financial advisors for wealth management. And then the last thing is this is more giving, but did you know it's good to sit on boards? So I remember somebody coming to me and say, hey, you want to sit on this board? And I'm like, no, I'm not qualified. And he's like, No, you need to, because this is the way you learn. You're going to end up getting more out of this, and you'll be able to give. So I think it's like, it's valuable. It's like, I sit on a board. It's actually the Pequea Valley Fire Department that we sit on the board there, and it's not even really like, it's just because you get to meet great people. You get to meet with, like, work with people, business-minded people. So if you ever get an opportunity to sit on a board and you don't feel qualified, do it anyway, because it's great, okay? All right, building the right team and culture. I kind of like the quote by Gino Wickman: if you can get all the people in an organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. You guys know what that means? It's like you get rowing in the same direction. It's like, I call it the boat, right? And we use this thing in our company where if our circles are disconnected, you ever feel where somebody's just way over here somewhere or way over here? It's just like, where are they at, right? Oh, you can see them occasionally. It's like, guys, get in the boat, right? Let's row in the same direction, because if everybody does that, if the whole company is rowing the same direction, we're unstoppable. It don't matter, right? Hiring and retaining a team. When I wrote this, I almost felt like skipping this part, because I am still learning. I'm still trying to figure this out. So I'm not a master of this. I'm still learning, and I'm still making mistakes, and I'm still learning, right? I'm hoping I'm getting smarter. I would think sometimes, why did I make that mistake again, right? And it really comes down to, like, hiring. Again, I talked about the hiring story, right? I figured it out. One example is, did you know that, so we're in welding business, right? And Dan, maybe you have some tips for me on how to hire welders. I can count with one hand how many people came to me and said, I want to weld, right? So we have different techniques. It's like, hey, you want to be a warehouse worker? Hey, you want to do parts? Hey, you want to do this? And then you get them in, and then you're like, hey, by the way, this job pays a little bit more to weld. Would you guys be interested in that, right? So there's different techniques of how to get welders, because people don't wake up in the morning thinking about welding, it seems, right? It's like they go through that Busy Beaver, and it's like, I don't know, 1 in 1,000 wants to weld, and the other ones all want to carpenter or do poly lumber stuff. I don't know what it is. So anyway, what's that? I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, it sounds like we need to have a conversation. Okay. All right. Anyway, again, one of the things is right people in the right seats, right? That's a key thing that we talk about. Right people in the right seats. You know how important that is? Right people in the right seats. What do we mean by that? Right people means they follow your core values. The right seats means they get it, they want it, they have capacity to do it. Right? So that's how we measure. That's how we look at that, right? Right people in the right seats. How many people are not in the right seats or don't follow your core values, right? Hire people that are a fit, okay? I have my own personality type. I'm a D. I'm a high D, okay? High D. I learned that time at Sadie Maple. I thought I'd be a C or something like that, but I was a D. Anyway. Then I realized after that, it's like, well, shoot, why do I have so many S's and C's on my team? Well, I realized that, right? I guess it wasn't by accident, it was by human nature. So right people, like hire people for you. If like I'm a visionary, I'm a strategist. I like new things, new stuff, right? So I just need a lot of people that do my stuff, right? It's kind of long story short of it. Well, if you're not a visionary, you should probably hire somebody that is visionary, right? So again, what I'm recognizing just of late is I lack strategy, I need to be more intentional about hiring strategy, even though we butt heads some, right? We have in our company, we have a lot of different cultures, Amish, Mennonite, and now we have like 3 sets of Amish now, right? So it gets interesting, right? But you know what I tell everybody that works there? It's like, it doesn't matter what color you are, what church you go. If you don't go to church, you're welcome to work here, as long as you are the right person in the right seat. Right? That's what I tell them. You follow the core values, and you're in the right seat. Just lately, we had this discussion, right? Because again, we have 3 types of Amish now, or 5, whatever it is. We had a conversation about that, right? Because you hear in different workplaces, it's like people are tit for tat and talking about. It's like, I sat down with all the Amish employees and I said, guys, it doesn't matter what church you go or what you decide to do. Let's all respect each other of who we are and our convictions or whatever. You're all welcome to work here, right? Doesn't matter, right? So again, it's about setting that expectation. It's interesting because the Amish, and I don't know, it's kind of weird to say it, non-Amish, I guess you'd call it. You grew up in different households and you have different convictions, different upbringing, and it takes education to have them work together, but once they do, they respect each other and they work. Diversity, actually, I find, is healthy in the workplace. Adapting to remote employees is another interesting thing, right? It's like as an e-commerce company, there's the talent is not as, like, you can't find the talent that we have been looking for some of these specialized jobs for e-commerce. So I had to be okay with hiring remote employees, right? So we have an employee, like we have an employee in Colorado, Tennessee, North Carolina, like I think we have upstate Pennsylvania. So we probably have 6 or 7 employees that are remote. And it's about adapting to that. We just adapted to it, right? It was hard, but it was because I'm more personable. Get everybody to sit around a table and let's talk about it, right? Well, what I learned is you just have to, when we adapted to it, I recognized when we first started meeting, we would have a projector where we would call them. You'd have one person that's remote and the other 4 people are sitting in a room. Well, then it felt like it was like disconnected, right? Well, finally we said, well, wait a minute. If he's remote, let's all be remote. And then that worked. So it was a solve for it, right? So again, normally there's a solve for most things. I'm going to need to keep going here. Looks like I'm running out of time. Another thing I've learned, delegate and elevate was one of the key things as well, is there's things that you're good at, and there's things, talk about building a team. Did you know that we're all good at things and we're not so good at others? Right? Well, isn't it fun doing all the things you're good at and then delegating the stuff you're not good at, right? So if you go to hire a person, a team member, it's like, I'm busy. Here's what happens with most people. I'm busy. I want to hire another person because I'm overwhelmed. And then you say, well, I don't like doing this work. I'm going to keep that because I hate to have somebody else do that work. I would never want to, if I don't like it, I don't want somebody else dumped to somebody else. Well, that's just the opposite. It's like, did you know there's somebody that actually likes to do that work that you don't like to do? That's been a huge game changer for me and us, is delegate, right? Search it. There's a whole, we could talk about that for a whole hour. Another thing is educational and workplace morality, right? Mixed cultures, we have ladies, men. Educate, right? It's like, don't be afraid to educate. Don't push it on the rug. Talk about it, right? Talk about it's important. And then how do you make that, like, make your employees feel important, appreciated, right? Make them feel appreciated. And this is an area that I find I'm guilty of, right? Because I'm a driven, so it's easier for me to, like, just go, like, oh, that was yesterday, like, who cares about that? It's like, it's the next thing, right? Well, I got to stop and remember to appreciate the employees. And I tell you, one thing I've noticed of how to appreciate somebody is walking around. Okay, walking around and just acknowledge them. Okay, one thing I did early on in business, I learned this is another mistake I learned at my dad's company that I learned. When you walk into a space, when you walk into somebody's workspace, it should only be talking about good things. Never confront anybody about that's not working, okay? That should be in an office behind closed doors. That's their safe space. Because when I walk through that shop, I want everybody to want me to come through the shop, right? Or through the office. Or I can criticize their work, and then they can't wait till I get out. And I've learned that is, like, that's so critical. Is when you walk through their workspaces, say hi, say good morning to everybody. If I do that, the work morale goes up. Right? Even the remote employees. If I reach out to them just randomly, give them a call, that morale goes up. I find myself where it's like I do that well, and then I don't do it well. I do it well, and if you're consistent with this works. Right? You will retain people if you do this. And I have lost people because I have not done this. Okay? I know that. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't keep my circles connected. Just a little insight on the structure. So again, we use EOS. So once a year, we have a 2-day offsite with our leadership team. We talk about business strategy, high-level work on the business. And our leadership team, I think right now there's 8 of us now. Eight of us in all different departments. And then we have quarterly meetings where we set rocks. We set the most important tasks, the projects for that quarter. So like this quarter here, we have another one coming in August. But we all have at least 3 to 7 rocks that we walk away with, and those are the most important things to work on in that next quarter. We have monthly team meetings, and then we have weekly what we call level 10 meetings. Every week we have a leadership meeting that is on the same day, same time, same agenda. Right? We don't have one-on-one recurring check-ins. We have team meetings. That's where, and the same agenda. I don't need to prep an agenda before the meeting. I can walk into the meeting and I can run the meeting because the agenda is always the same. And the way it works, again, it's the EOS, what we use EOS. It's basically segue is you come in, you give a good personal business news, what's important to you, right? Next one is like, okay, what are the next piece of agenda is scorecard. Everybody has a score. Okay, so it's like wholesale sales. They have a score of what their revenue targets and where they're at. We have e-commerce sales. We have product development is new product sales. We have operations is inventory. We track inventory. We have profits is the controller. So we cover everything. So basically it's like I can go to Florida for 2 weeks and I can see that and I'm like, yep, everything looks good. I don't need to go back. Right? Or it's like, oh my, I need to get back. Or I need to call this person, right? So that's been a game changer for us, right? Things I've learned, what worked and what didn't work. Keep faith and family before business. Like I said before, it's like you can, like, again, when things are going well, it's easy to lose focus on faith, right? Family, it's like, man, our families, I look now, it's like, even like today, it's like, I still, it's something you got to work on every day. Just how do you keep work-life balance, right? So if there's anybody that has advice for me, I'd be happy to talk to you, right? Because this is an area I think I'm doing well, and then it's like not so much. But anyway, I kind of feel like this is an area where I need a little bit of adjusting. I just called one of my buddies this week, and I'm like, do you have a personal coach that can help me through this, right? Because so that's the next thing I'm looking for. So is there anybody here that knows of somebody like you need to have this person help you? I'm open. I'm looking for a coach to help me with this in this area, right?
Did Joe mention about life in there? He did, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, we'll keep going. I'm also looking at talk about work-life balance. Talk about work-life balance. It's okay to say no. One of the things I've learned is once you get, like, for example, sometimes I wish I wouldn't have a phone. I quit answering the calls if I don't know the number because I get so many. I now understand why some people get a new phone every once in a while, right? That's how it is. And that's been a struggle for me to, like, because I'm used to, like, if somebody calls, you answer, right? So sometimes I have friends that reach out to me and like, did you get my message? I'm like, no, I didn't. So that's a part of, like, being part of a growth company where I still feel like I need to be catering to everybody, right? So that's a struggle for me, is not giving everybody service, right? Again, saying no to things, right? There's different another thing is, you know, when you start to have experience, people start knocking your door. You want to help with this. You want to help with this. You want to help with this. And one of the things I've learned is say no, right? You can only handle so much, right? Figure out what your boundaries are. Whether you're sitting on a board, is it one board, right? Because you might be on you don't want to be on 10 boards, right? After when you're not at home, right? Whatever else. I'm just saying, I've learned this where I've abused it, right? And my family took the beating. The team member at work took the beating for this. Yes, and you say, oh, I want to help. You justify that and say I want to help people, but you're not helping people if you're not helping yourself, right? You gotta have a balance. Another one is, right? So 3 or 4 years in the business, everything's going well, cash is starting to build up. Oh boy, starting to get like, what else can I do, right? So my recommendation is, if you're an operator in a business, for me, if I'm an operator in a business, as long as I'm operating in a business, I don't want to own more than one business. I've tried that, right? Having two business, if you're an operator in a business, now it's different. If you're an investor and you have people running, it's different. I'm saying if you're an operator in a business, having two businesses is like having two wives. They both need you, right? I learned that lesson. It was painful. What's that? Anyway, yeah. So, been there, done that, and I'm actually glad I experienced it, and that it didn't hurt me. Some people get really burnt by this, and I got burnt in a small way, right? Burn out yourself and team. So I'll give you a little story. Most of you know COVID, right? COVID years. So we're again, keep in mind, I'm hitting my goals. You know, it's like first year, 500,000, million. Okay, now we're like 2 million. Now we're at 3, we're at 4. And COVID hits, and it's 20 and 50, right? That's how fast it was. I was kind of like, people talk about growing pains, and I was like, I didn't feel growing pains. Even at 50, I didn't feel the growing pains, right? Yeah, we were running hard, and I look back and say, we kind of got numb to it. We were running hard. We burned some people out. But the growing pains actually started after the peak. And I never realized that. I always thought growing pains happen when you're going up, but it's actually not. Growing pains happen when it levels out or drops off. Because what happened was we were just fueled by sales. Everybody was fueled by sales at that point, so you didn't have to work for it. It was just like I was out there welding and putting lids together and shipping stuff, right? My partner and I, Jonathan, were like everybody's just out there working, having a good time. Well, once reality set in, once it caught up, we were hiring people and we had no processes in place. It was just, because it didn't matter. You just work. Well, it caught up to us in 22. In 2022, it caught up to us. And you talk about pain. We had people that did not have the capacity. I didn't have the capacity. I did not have the mental capacity to be where I'm at. Like, I look back now, I was like, what the world was I thinking? And somebody asked me lately, like, would you do the same thing you did in 2020 and 2021 if you'd have to do it over again? I'm like, no, I'd be a little smarter this time around because I know how painful it was. We lost people through that. We burned out people. I was burned out. So if I'm burned out as a CEO, your team's going to suffer from that, right? Because when you burn out, you do things that you normally don't do. Say things you shouldn't do, right? So again, I don't know if you ever felt this, but that was painful. The ride up was fun, right? So we peaked out about 50, and today we're about 40, right? We're actually started saying no to things. We were intentional about resetting it, and the economical conditions definitely, made a difference there because like we rode that curve super hard, right? As hard as we could go. We didn't say, we just went, right? And again, I'm not, if you would talk to some of our team members would say that was fun. Some of them said, no, that was not fun. Profits, I also recognize profits are more important than sales goals. So what do most people say? What's your revenue? Right? How many doors do you have? What's your revenue, right? It's like, oh, I'm 3 million in sales. Oh, that's cool. Well, what are you actually making in profit? That's what matters. Why not go fishing, losing money, rather than work and losing money? Right? So I changed my mentality. I was like, it was all about sales. Now it's more about profit goals, right? And that's also what shaped us into not being a $50 million company, more than a $40 million company, is where we focused on profitable things, right? We said no to some business that was not profitable. Financial strategies. One of the things that, if we look at it, the things we learn, again, talk about financial accountability. Having a partner helps financial accountability, is what I learned. I'm so thankful that I have a partner because it helps with financial accountability. I can't pull money out of the company without asking him, right? I got to get his permission. Full transparency to the leadership team. Our leadership team, all 8 of them know everything about our financials. They know how much money we have in the bank. They know how much profit we make. They know everything. That helps accountability. Our leadership team, our whole company is actually on profit sharing. Our leadership team is on profit sharing. They get the leadership team gets a bigger chunk, so they're driven to make that number. The only way you can make them really work is if you can see the numbers. Tell them what score is. It's like if you go to a ball game, you don't tell them what score is. How fun is that, right? I found that first I was like, my goodness, am I going to let people see my numbers? But I recognize once I've exposed it, it's awesome. I wouldn't go back. We even share our profit goals and our sales goals with all our 60 people. Right? Everybody knows what our profit goals are. Inventory management, we do monthly inventory. Right? It's important for us. It takes time, but we do it because we want to see monthly what's happening. We want to watch score. We have a 13-week cash flow plan that we do weekly. So the controller, we can see 13 weeks where our cash is going to be. That's again, visibility. Annual budget. Here's an interesting one. So 2 years ago, so our busiest month is November. Well, next to that is December, and that's Christmas, right? So when do you have to have your budget done by? By the end of the year. Well, we're too busy working in November, so we decided, it's like, and you're scrambling in December, and it's holidays, and people are like tired. So we said, wait a minute, why are we budgeting from January for the year? We can change this, can't we? We can make our own rules. Budgeting is different than tax accounting. But now we have our budget year is February 1 to through January. So we can take January, take a breath in December. January, we got time to work on things, and then we have our budget set for the next 12 months, February 1. Works great. Investments, right? This is a key thing. When you run a business, it's like you have cash. You need cash reserve to run a business. Right? Well, where are you going to put it? You don't want to just put it right. What are investments you could do? One is invest in people, invest in equipment. Put it in a saving money market or accounts. Stock market. If you guys do stocks, we use captive insurance as a reinsurer for insurance. We've done that for quite a while, and that's been great. That's another way. And then real estate. So you guys ready for the real estate story? I don't like doors as much. Less doors are better. No, I do like doors if somebody else takes care of it for me. But I realized quickly, like, it's something I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy that phone call. It's a distraction, right? I don't enjoy that phone call. So what do? I buy farms. That's what I do, because there's not as many doors on farms. Particularly, I'm very interested in farms in Amish and Mennonite communities, just on the outskirts of Amish and Mennonite communities. Done quite well. Because so why? Why just outside Amish Mennonite communities? Because farms in Langston County are what, 50,000 acre? 50,000 acre? And then you go to some of these new and upcoming, I'm talking about new and upcoming communities. When people start buying, you go in there and, okay, well, let's buy one just outskirts, because in 5 years from now, that price is going to double. That's what happens. I don't want to see you at the auctions, okay? Anyway, no, it works. I'm saying, like, that's my strategy. And I look at farms as a banking account. I look at it as a banking account because I gotta have, to back up the business, I gotta have collateral to back up the business. Right? And I also need to be able to flip it and turn it money. So I also got to make sure I buy, again, the opportunity is going by. I'm constantly watching for farms, constantly. That's my weakness, right? That's top secret. No, actually, no, it's not. It's like, first of all, you get great it's strategically buying farms that have a lot of buildings on it, because you get great depreciation from that, and it's there's tax benefits, right? And you can rent them out, or you can also, there's other ways to create income from farms that they can actually cash flow, right? Whether it's putting tiny houses on there, whatever else it is, right? So
You're not necessarily having crops on there.
yeah, no, it's mostly crops. Like it's usually a combination. Yeah.
There's a trend right now for people to do homesteading type stuff where they'll rent out like an acre and just grow tomatoes or whatever, but they live on it, and they're like New York or New Jersey people that come to the area.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it's an interesting. I had this idea a while back. I don't know if any of you do this, but I had this idea a while back of like, why don't somebody do this, right? And I'm like, well, why don't I do this? I couldn't do it, right, in earlier years, but now this is one of my interests. I'm gonna skip over the sales stuff, I think, because I think we're out of time. If you want to talk about sales, of how I think about sales, you can hit me up anytime you want to. Things I learned about sales. All right, a couple things. So we got to keep in mind, when I went to school, I'm a C student, I think. Like, I remember like my worst score was 74% on my average, right? And that didn't really keep me back from running a business. I just hire smart people, right? I don't consider myself smart. I consider myself fortunate that I got good people. So recently, I think about a year ago, there's a couple of us that are in a book study together now. We're doing about a year, and I really enjoy it. And it was like it was kind of an answer to prayer, because I'm like, I don't enjoy reading. Before a year ago, I probably read 5 books. Okay, 5 books in 40 years, that's terrible, ain't it? I didn't enjoy it. And I recognized I sat down to read an email and I didn't. It was hard to absorb it. So I was like, I got to read, because every time when I did read a book, I was like, this is fun. And I'm the type of guy where it's like, I'll read a book 3/4 way through, and if I know the outcome, I'll stop. But what happened was, with the book study, I was like, it's kind of an answer. It was an answer to prayer, and a great group of guys. Jake is in that group, and it's just fun to get together to discuss things we learned. So here are some of the things some books that I've learned that we read. Traction is that EOS implementer book that I read. If you're interested, Who Not How is another good book. It talks about hiring the who's in your company, right? That's a key part of hiring the right people, whether it's an attorney or an accountant, or it's a marketing person, or it's a logistics person. Like it tells you about that. Another good one is The Go-Giver. We just read that one here 2 months ago, and it's like, Go-Giver. You ever hear the thing of like, the more you give, the more you get? The more you give, the more you get. We think about that in terms of money, right? The more you give, the more you get. Well, did you know that's everything? That's not just money, that's everything. Right? If I give you a smile, right? If I give you a smile, I'll get smiles back. Gotcha. But what I've learned, what I've learned about this book is also talks about being a good receiver. Did you know that it's hard to give if you don't receive? I didn't know that. It's hard to give if you don't receive. So be a good receiver so that you can give. If you can't give money if you don't receive it, right? If you give me a smile, I'd probably accept it, and then I'll smile to somebody else, right? Hopefully. Right? It wears off. So that's probably been one of my better books that I read. The Gap and the Gain. That's been an eye-opener for me. I'm the one where it's like, let's go, right? What didn't work, change it, right? What didn't work, change it. And it's like, no, this says celebrate the wins, not the losses. And then rocket fuel. Rocket fuel is a good one. That's another one I've learned. Talking about going from 0 to 50 million, we had rocket fuel, right? We had rocket fuel. Jonathan and I, my partner, experienced rocket fuel. Jonathan's a high visionary, right? And not strong in integration, right? Has 20 ideas and maybe there's 3 that are good. He recognizes that, right? Well, if he has all those ideas, who's going to put them into place? Right? Well, that's where I came in. It's like I grabbed his ideas and I said, good idea, I'll put that in place. And I also say no to the ones that were not, right? The whole freight train thing. And that's how we worked. He had a ton of ideas that is like, I never thought about that, right? So that's that. If you can really embrace that, you will go places. Read it and take it seriously. If you don't have that in your life, you'll be complacent, I think. All right, video. Next. Twice? Okay. I got a little inspirational video that I like. It's a video by Simon Sinek. And I've been inspired by this person. So when you ever sit in a meeting with me and I ask questions, you know why.
The reality is, I'm an idiot. And I'm not being flip about it. I don't understand very complicated things. And so I ask a lot of questions so that the person who's telling me something complicated, who's talking in terms as if I understand them,
Sure.
finance or neuroscience, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I ask enough questions just so that I understand it. So is what you're saying this? No, that's not what I'm saying. Well, what are you? So I'll give you a perfect example. So a long time ago, I had a client. They were a public company, and they brought me on to do some work for them. But they invited me to sit in on a meeting from the consultant that they had hired. And so all the C-level executives and me, and this consultant was giving a presentation about something or other.
This is junior marketing.
This is when I had my little marketing company, and all the C-level executives sitting there nodding and taking notes on the PowerPoint that they had printed up in front of them, and I had it as well, and I didn't understand a frickin' word of it.
Yeah.
Right? I was like looking around like,
yeah.
and so I'd raise my hand and say, I'm really, really sorry. I know I'm the only person in this room without an MBA, but this doesn't make sense. Like you say A plus B equals C, but based on your logic, A plus B equals D. Can you just say it again, please? I'm really sorry to slow the meeting down, everybody. And you could see the consultant getting frustrated with me and would try and explain it again. I said, I'm so sorry. And one by one, all the C-level executives said, yeah, I don't understand it either. Now, if the idiot hadn't spoken up and said, I don't understand, they all would have nodded their heads for fear of looking stupid because they didn't understand. And they would have paid a lot of money for a document they didn't understand, and they would never have used it and would have sat on a shelf. And it's because I'm okay being the idiot. That's why I'm not being flip. I'm okay everybody in the room going, oh, because I have to ask questions until I understand it. But the reality is once I can get to the point where I understand it, I can get it so simple that I understand it, and I can say it in simple terms. That means other people understand it too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value being the idiot.
I have a question on I'm good friends with Adam Wood, who worked for me for a number of years. So I heard about the business here and there, traveled with the meetings here. So he mentioned how in 2021, Jan 2021, you were stocking up for that point in the spring, and these markets just kept piling up and piling up. And I'm curious how do you recognize you have to adapt and change something? How did you adapt in the middle of a changing market without freaking out and losing a bunch of people and laying off a bunch of people? how did you navigate that very difficult time as far as like silver dropping and the spring boom and boom happening? How did you navigate that without throwing your team off and losing?
So I did freak out. Yeah, inventory, right? That's right. Yeah, so Eli's saying when we hit the high point, and keep in mind, when you go from 5 to 20 to 50, what's next to 50? It was 70, right? That's where we're going, right? Because we're just tired of being always stocked out of stuff, so we're gonna let's build up more inventory, right? So our off season, because we have off season starting, in this, that was spring of 22, right? So off season, January, February, we're stocking up, and I want to say we had $10 million of inventory coming into the spring, because we want to support this and get this going, right? Talk about pain, because we had to backtrack fast, right? You ever hear the story? If you're willing to grow fast, you got to be willing to drop fast. You ever hear that? Where it's like, if you're willing to grow fast, you gotta reduce fast. That's what we did, and I'm just grateful that, like somebody like Abner, like I don't think Abner probably didn't get the beating on that one, but there's some people in the company that did, right? Where no, we had to backtrack fast. We had to cut stop contracts of basically. I remember going in one morning and going into the purchasing team, and I say, stop ordering. Don't order anything else. Every purchase order got to get approved by me because of our cash flow, right? So we had to. So it was like seen it. When we seen it turn, thankfully we caught it, right? And thankfully we kept cash during the good years to cover that. So that's another thing is you have good years and you have not so good years, and if we would have not reserved cash during that time, our outcome would have been different. So by the grace of God, all I can say is God was looking after us. I don't even know how we got out of the 2 year other than that. Yeah. So I wasn't experienced, for sure not. I didn't know, right? So anyway, I could talk another half an hour on that, but another time. I actually was going to talk about that pain point turn, but we ran out of time, so.
How much of being able to pivot like that do you credit to having the systems in place that you can see, here's our inventory, here's your your clear numbers, your systems for the numbers? Is that what played a big role in being able to see things aren't going the way they should?
Our line of credit was maxed out. That was the only indicator we had. So at that point, we did not have those indicators we have today. Keep in mind, we're a $5 million company gone to the moon. Didn't have time for setting processes in place or keeping track of score because the cash was rolling in. It's when that stopped and that line of credit got full or empty, whatever you want to call it. It's like, we got to do something now. Okay? Brian, you didn't hear that? So we learn a lesson. Okay? Like, major lesson. Growth is fun on the way up, but it's not fun when it levels out or comes down.
How about a big hand for Amos? Amos, thank you. I think we should have allowed another extra hour or so for this because I think you could have kept going for a while, but that was really, really good. I'm sure you put a lot of time into getting ready for that, so thank you very much for doing that. So with that, we're going to wrap up. If everything goes as planned, our speaker for next month is going to be Judge Jeffrey Conrad again. We had him in here a little over a year ago, I think, but Judge Jeffrey Conrad from the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas, amazing, inspiring speaker talking about what he does and stories from the courtroom. So hopefully that'll work out for next month. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for coming out, and we'll see you back here hopefully the first Wednesday evening in August.